The Russillo Show. I'm sure some through the first few hours of this. I don't know how it's going to go. You probably start the week. You go, all right, I'd still want to do a normal show, but then that doesn't feel right. And today's been awesome. So I'm going to try to close this out as well as I can. And I guess I'm going to talk about this whole deal and how I feel. And it's not going to be like Wednesday's Open. And I can't emphasize this enough. And I'm not just saying this, but I just feel really great about how everybody's talked to me about it, management that gets it, and they kind of get it, and I'm kind of, getting it. And then I have those moments, be like, is this really what I want to do? Because I grew up loving this place. I grew up obsessed with it. I grew up watching it over and over and over again in the morning and thinking Craig Kilborn was the funniest person ever. I thought he was better than comedians. But this journey has been long. It's been a lot of time, but they don't give these jobs out to the people that don't deserve them. They weed you out. Life weeds us all out. Life has a way, like, you know how everybody played Little League Baseball, and then guess what happens? Junior high, and then high school, and then you're in high school, and you're like, oh, yeah, that kid used to play like second base, and then he retired at 8. And that's what happens with these jobs because they're hard. They're very hard in the beginning. And I went from the bartender that said, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to work for a team, or I'd like to host my own show, or I'd like to work in tech. Like, I want to do all these things. And they go, hey, how about another Honey Brown, And you'd pour a draft, and you'd sit there, and you'd fantasize about it. And then one day I said, that's it. Screw it. I'm doing it. And the only team, as a lot of you already know, was a minor league baseball team that brought me down because I had a deep voice that put me on the air. And I owe a lot to that organization. And as I've mentioned and bummed the guys out, the Trenton Thunder before, and I said it was the worst job I've ever had. I know that comes off as like ungrateful. And if you work there, you'd go, well, that's not a very nice thing to say. But I think everybody understands that that is a grind of a job. And you're not making any money, and you're broke, and you're looking at your credit score going, are we going to get this thing over 620? So because I had that, I was now a real guy. And anybody listening that wants to do this, if you're not in the air, that's going to be the first major, major hurdle. Somebody actually wants to put you on their network, their airwaves on purpose, and then pay you for it. And it's a real thing. And it's easier now in new creative ways that you can even thought of as an option, that you could just start your own podcast and hassle people on social media and get them to come on your show. And now next thing you know, you've got this nice guest list. But I ended up in Boston because I was the Boston minor league baseball guy. I was there 3 years, and it was just a perfect spot for me because the show and the station was terrible, okay? It was falling apart. No one would deny that. But they needed bodies, and they needed guys that could talk all day. And I luckily was one of those that could make $20,000 a year and not freak out and get divorced. And when I re-signed in Boston, at the time, thought I re-signed, I was going to make $100,000 a year, and I thought I was rich. We're talking boat lifestyle. I couldn't wait. And they laid me off and lied to me about the contract, and I was devastated. I thought I'd signed a 3-year deal, $100,000 a pop, not even 30 years old. Who wants jewelry? And instead it was, actually, we lied to you. We're going to lay you off. And it is still, without question, the best thing that's ever happened to me in my professional career because it got me my tryout at ESPN. I asked McShay, I said, get me in the door. He goes, dude, not happening. It's ESPN. You stunk in Boston. No one even listened to your show. All accurate, Todd, but get me in. He goes, all I can promise you is that I will get a demo to the right guy. That guy's name was Dave Zaslowski. Dave called me up. It was ESPN the weekend when they used to send everybody to Disney, and they had no one here. There was no one here. There was no one here to do the shift. I did a 2-hour shift. I was terrible. He said he'd call me on Monday if I was any good. He'd let me know how it went, and it went 3 weeks without a call. And then he called me after 3 weeks, and he said, guess what? We need you another Saturday. And it wasn't because I was good. It was because I was available. And had I known then what I knew now, I would have just set up a tent across the street and put out a sign that said, we'll cover game night shifts because the place was so unorganized. By the way, for young people out there, it's not as unorganized now, so don't get a tent across the street at Hershey Lake Compounds. So I'm grinding out for 3 years. Then Van Pelt likes me. He says, hey, I'm Scott Van Pelt at the salad bar, back when we used to have like a different salad bar setup. I said, I went to UVM. He goes, you must have gotten so high all the time. I said, no, I don't like weed. I didn't even ski. But my name's Ryan. And then I was his co-host. And it was awesome because it was Scott Van Pelt. And even at 30, and 30 is so young if you're listening right now. It's so freaking young. My friends were like, what's Scott Van Pelt like? I said, he's great. He's really cool. And then a few weeks into our relationship, he did an awful job in an interview, and it wasn't his fault. And then I was still mic'd up, and he knew that I was talking and I didn't know that he could hear me, and I was screaming at the producer saying, "Why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? He's screwing up the interview. Like, what the hell is he doing?" And then the email just said, "I can hear you, bleep." And then we had to talk it out. And he said, "Here's the deal, man. If you're going to get frustrated with me about the show, tell me what you're frustrated about. Because I know you know this a little bit better than I do, but don't start screaming about how bad of a job I'm doing in the interview 2 weeks in when I got you the gig, moron." He was right. And then there was the cool stuff. Being at LSU the first time and running out to watch the band. And then I became band guy because everybody made fun of me because I was so into the band part of it. I will never forget being at these SEC sidelines and covering college football all over the country and having the perspective I have. Charles Barkley calling in saying, "You still spelling your name wrong?" My favorite athlete ever calling in to say that about me. Chris Mullen calling me to invite me to the Celebrity All-Star Game, playing in the Celebrity All-Star Game. Brewski walking around and be like, people like, Brewski doesn't like a lot of dudes, man. He likes you. Lou Holtz orders 2 hot dogs on a Saturday in front of me. And I said, "Hey, you know that kicker that beat you from BC that year when you should have won the national championship game? He went to UVM and played soccer and then transferred." And then my dad, who got to listen every day, and as you just heard, he is the man who just called into the show. I've never felt like a star like a Stephen A. or maybe even a Scott or a Greeny, but I think I was somebody that more people found relatable because of my background and everything I went through, and that's what I wanted to do every day I was on the show. I love this job. I'm going to miss it, and if Netflix doesn't pick up Ghost Dad, the TV series, we'll see what happens. The Russillo Show, ESPN Radio.